Dense fog wrapped around the narrow streets of Euphoria, a village carved into the dark mountains of the ancient kingdom of Valeria, where eternal autumn stained the leaves blood red. The air carried the damp smell of wet earth and distant howls echoing from forbidden forests. For Lyra, a 28-year-old single mother, that night was just another battle for survival. Her brown hair, disheveled and pulled into a loose bun, fell over her shoulders as she carried her 5-year-old son Theo in her arms. The boy trembled, not just from cold seeping through patched clothes, but from fear squeezing his small chest. They'd fled their cabin 3 days ago, after Theo's father, a violent drunk who'd never been more than a passing mistake, threatened to take him away and sell him as an apprentice in some distant mine. Lyra wouldn't allow it. She already carried too many scars, purple marks on her arms from past fights, the weight of family rejection who'd disowned her for having a bastard son, and shame that made her lower her eyes at markets where men's stares devoured her like easy prey. "You're just a widow without a man," the gossip said, but Lyra was strong, forged in pain, and would do anything for Theo, whose innocent green eyes were the only light in her dark life. Now they sheltered in a decaying inn at the village heart, a place called the Black Raven, where the roof leaked and guests were more shadows than people. Lyra had gotten a job washing dishes, but the pay barely covered bread and milk. That night, after an exhausting day, she laid him on the straw bed and covered him with a threadbare shawl. "Sleep, my love. Tomorrow will be better," she murmured, kissing his feverish forehead. Theo coughed, chest heaving, and fell asleep with a sigh. But Lyra's sleep was interrupted by a sharp cry from the alley behind the inn. A strange sound, not human. An agonized whimper mixed with a low growl. Her maternal instinct pulled her outside, barefoot and wrapped in a thin shawl. The full moon filtered through fog, casting silver light on muddy ground. There, trapped in a hunter's snare, an iron net of barbed wire and poisoned thorns used for rogue wolves, thrashed a small creature. It was a wolf pup, but unlike any she'd seen. Massive even as a child, with fur black as midnight and eyes that glowed gold with intelligence and pain. Blood matted its coat where the poisoned thorns had torn flesh. Lyra's heart raced. The villagers would kill the creature without mercy. Eudoria's laws were clear. Any shifter caught in human territory was open game. But those eyes pleaded. They were like Theo's, full of pure terror. Without thinking, she approached, ignoring the cold biting her skin. "Easy, little one," she whispered, trembling hands cutting the ropes with a rusty knife from her belt. The pup snarled, but didn't attack. Instead, it reached out a small paw, touching her arm as if seeking warmth. The poison from the thorns had already weakened it, and Lyra felt a pang of compassion that surprised her. She herself was an outsider, rejected, hunted by stares and whispers. Why not save another lost soul? With effort she freed it, wrapping it in her shawl. The pup was surprisingly light, cold, but alive. She ran back to the room, locking the door, and laid the creature beside Theo, who woke startled. "Mama, what is that?" the boy asked, eyes wide. "A friend who needs help," Lyra answered, heart pounding. She didn't know what to do. Human bandages wouldn't work for a shifter, but something compelled her to protect it, as she protected Theo. Then the window exploded in shards. An imposing figure emerged from shadows, moving with predatory grace that made the air freeze. Tall with broad shoulders, and black hair falling to his shoulders, he wore a cloak embroidered with ancient runes that glowed faintly. His eyes, burning gold like embers, fixed on the pup, and a low growl escaped his lips, revealing sharp canines. It was Draven, the Shadow Lord, the Alpha King of Valeria's wolf packs, an immortal being who ruled the eternal courts deep in the mountains. His presence filled the room like a storm, the scent of ancient power and wild forest saturating the air. "Who dares touch my heir?" His voice was deep thunder, echoing with ancestral authority. Lyra placed herself between him and the children, arms spread, body trembling but firm. I saved him. He was trapped, suffering. I wouldn't hurt him. Draven advanced, eyes narrowing as he examined the woman before him. A common human, marked by hard life, but with a flame of courage that intrigued him. He knelt beside the pup, who nestled against him with a relieved whimper. You interfered in pack business, he said, but his voice softened, a trace of reluctant gratitude. Theo whimpered, and Lyra pulled him close, defying the alpha with her gaze. He's just a child, like mine, she countered, voice hoarse with exhaustion and fear. So Draven raised his face, and for the first time in centuries, something stirred in his cold chest. A blood debt, a bond forged in darkness. He extended his hand, lightly touching Lyra's arm, and a fleeting vision passed through her mind. Memories of past betrayals in a Gothic court, where treaties were sealed with blood and curses. You saved what is mine, he said. For that I swear by my eternal bloodline. No man will touch you, neither human nor wolf. You are under my protection now. The words hung in the air like an ancient pact, and Lyra felt a shiver run down her spine, not just from fear, but from forbidden attraction, a heat contrasting with his cold. The fog outside thickened, and Valeria's mountains seemed to whisper promises of hidden dangers and desires. But that night, for the first time in years, Lyra didn't feel alone. The pup whimpered softly, and Theo, curious, reached out to touch it. The world of shadows had invaded her simple life, and with it came the Alpha who would change everything. Gray dawn crept over Euphoria, staining the sky a sickly purple that seeped through cracks in the shattered window. Lyra hadn't slept, her eyes, swollen with fatigue, fixed on the wolf pup nestled beside Theo, who now breathed calmly, his little face serene, contrasting with last night's chaos. The creature, whom Draven had called his heir in a reverent tone, seemed more human in the weak morning light. A small boy with pale skin and black hair, the wolf form faded with rest. His name was Aaron, an ancient name carrying forgotten bloodlines from the depths of Valeria's mountains. Draven remained motionless in the corner, a statue of living shadows. His golden eyes didn't blink, watching each breath of the children like an eternal guardian. The air around him pulsed with cold energy, a metallic scent of blood and ozone that made Lyra's skin tingle. She'd curled on the narrow bed, threadbare shawl wrapped around her body, feeling the weight of his oath like an invisible chain. No man will touch you. The words echoed in her mind, a shield and a prison at once. Who was he to promise such a thing? A monster from legends, lord of courts where blood-sealed pacts and curses lasted generations. But in his eyes, when he'd briefly touched her, Lyra had seen something more, an ancient loneliness, a void mirroring her own. You need to go, she finally murmured, hoarse voice breaking the oppressive silence. If a Theo stirred in sleep and Lyra pressed him to her chest, heart hammering. Take Aaron back where he belongs. We'll be fine here. Draven tilted his head, a feline gesture revealing predatory grace in his immortal form. His black hair fell like a curtain of night, framing a face sculpted in marble. Square jaw, full lips hiding lethal fangs, and a thin scar descending from his temple, remnant of battles against ancestral hunters. Fine here, where humans hunt what they don't understand, he said. The trap's poison still runs in his veins. Aaron needs refuge, pure bloodline to heal. And you invoked this by saving him. The Treaty of Eldor, sealed 500 winters ago, prohibits interference. The villagers already whisper, "You're not safe." Lyra swallowed hard, remembering the inn's gossips. It's the lecherous stares of the innkeeper who always lingered too long when giving change. She was a widow without protection, easy prey in a village where women like her were commodities. Theo's father had been the first to mark her, with fists and empty promises, leaving scars that hurt more in soul than skin. I didn't ask for this. I just did what any mother would. Exactly. Draven rose, moving soundlessly like an icy breeze. He approached the bed, and Lyra instinctively pulled back, but didn't look away. There was an intensity in him, a magnetism drawing her like the moon draws wolves, creatures of night who ran beneath stars. Mothers protect what is theirs. Aaron is the last of my direct bloodline, born of a cursed union with a mountain witch. If he perishes, Valeria's balance collapses. You saved him, Lyra. Your name echoes in my mind now like a blood bond. She blinked, surprised to hear her name on his lips. How did he know? He must have read it in her eyes. Or perhaps Alpha's possessed gifts beyond the obvious. Visions of stolen memories in a touch. The air crackled, charged with tension that wasn't just fear. Her body, marked by motherhood and life's harshness, suddenly felt exposed under the thin shawl. Draven's gaze descended for an instant, not with lust, but with ancient curiosity, as if seeing beyond flesh to the inner flame that had driven her to act. Before she could respond, noise echoed from the corridor. Angry voices, the clang of weapons. "Monster in the inn! The widow hid it!" someone shouted. Lyra recognized the local hunter's rough voice, the same who'd set the trap for rogue wolves. Theo woke, whimpering, and Aaron shifted weakly, golden eyes opening with dread. Draven growled, a sound that made the walls tremble, revealing fangs gleaming like blades. They come for vengeance. The treaty excites them like hungry dogs. He extended his hand to Lyra, fingers long and pale, contrasting with her tanned skin. Come with me to Valeria's shadows. There, my oath will be iron. Lyra hesitated, panic squeezing her chest. Flee to the mountains, to an Alpha's domain, where Gothic courts of black stone housed immortals and curses. She imagined fortresses carved into frozen cliffs, halls lit by crystals pulsing with ancestral power, and rituals where humans were tributes or forbidden lovers. But here, at the inn, death was certain. For her, for Theo, and now for Aaron, who clung to her like a lost pup. I don't have a choice. Do I? She whispered, picking up Theo. The confused boy buried his face in her shoulder. Aaron, weak but determined, crawled into Draven's arms, who lifted him with surprising tenderness. Choices are illusions for mortals, the Alpha answered, voice dark velvet wrapping around her. But this one is yours. Live under my protection, and find strength in shadows. With a fluid gesture, Draven broke through the back door, revealing the foggy alley. Mist swallowed them like a cloak, and they ran, or rather, flew, in a supernatural dance. Draven carried Aaron and Lyra followed, heart racing, feeling the cold mountain wind whip her face. Behind them, villagers shouted, torches flaming in darkness, but fog separated them like an enchanted veil. Hours passed in a blur of dense forests and steep trails, thin air heavy with pines and eternal frost. Lyra's legs burned, but adrenaline, and something more, a spark of forbidden excitement, drove her forward. Draven stopped in a clearing where a hidden entrance opened in rock, the door to Valeria's depths, guarded by runes glowing red at his touch. Enter, Lyra. Here no man, neither human nor wolf, unless you wish it, will touch you. His eyes met hers, and for a second his cold seemed to warm, a glimpse of vulnerability in an immortal being. She crossed the threshold, the world of shadows swallowing her, promising dangers, healing, and a love that would defy death. Theo fell asleep in her arms as they descended obsidian staircases echoing with ancestral whispers. Aaron whimpered softly, and Draven smiled. a rare smile that made Lyra's heart skip. In the depths, a Gothic court awaited with halls of bloody tapestries and mirrors revealing true souls. There, traumas would be confronted, powers awakened, and a rejected mother would find acceptance in arms, promising eternity. But the mountains whispered warnings. Love between light and shadow always demanded a price in blood. The obsidian staircases seemed to descend infinitely, echoing Lyra's steps like whispers of ancestral ghosts. The air grew colder and denser with each step, saturated with a metallic perfume reminiscent of heated iron and wilted roses. Floating torches, fed by red crystals pulsing like living hearts, illuminated walls carved with reliefs of forgotten battles. Winged wolves facing human armies under blood moons. Treaties sealed with drops of blood transforming into eternal runes. Theo weighed in her arms, his warm little body contrasting with ice seeping into her skin. Aaron, now more alert, watched everything with curious eyes, tiny form trembling with weakness. Draven led the way, his imposing silhouette projecting shadows dancing like obedient servants. He carried Aaron with tenderness belying his ferocity, long fingers tracing gentle patterns on the child's back, as if invoking a healing ritual. His veins still carry poison, he murmured to himself, voice a deep purr reverberating in the stones. But Valeria's blood will purify him. Lyra followed in silence, heart a mixture of terror and fascination. As a common human, she felt like an intruder in this underground labyrinth where time seemed suspended in eternal night. Her scars, faded purple marks on arms, the weight of family rejection that made her shrink, throbbed like reminders of her fragility. And now here, under a monster's protection, she questioned whether her courage had been madness. Finally, the stairs opened to a vast hall, the court of eternal shadows, Valeria's pulsing heart. Black marble pillars rose to a vaulted ceiling studded with false stars, crystals simulating the night sky with constellations narrating legends of curses and rebirths. Tapestries embroidered with silver threads and coagulated blood hung from walls, portraying crowned alpha wolves on thorn thrones, their queens beside them with eyes gleaming like rubies. The floor was a mosaic of red veins, as if Earth's own blood flowed there. A crowd of pale figures moved with ethereal grace, wolves of ancient bloodlines. He dressed in dark silks and jewels capturing weak light, whispering in forgotten tongues. Some had forms partially shifted, claws extended, eyes glowing. Others fully human but radiating predatory power. The air hummed with subtle energy, a touch of blood-bound magic, collective memories making eyes turn toward the newcomers. A collective murmur rose when Draven entered with Aaron in his arms. "The Alpha returns with the air," exclaimed a slender she-wolf with silver hair falling like moonlit waterfalls, approaching with reverence. Her name was Selene, Draven's advisor, whose gray eyes assessed Lyra with unveiled disdain. But humans in the court? The word humans echoed like a curse, and hostile stares fixed on Lyra and Theo. She pressed her son to her chest, feeling the flush of humiliation rise to her face. In Euphoria, so she was the rejected widow, lowering her eyes to avoid judgment. Here it was worse, a dirty mortal, a threat to the delicate balance between shadows and the world above. Draven raised his hand, silencing the hall with an imperious gesture. "They are under my blood oath. Lyra saved Aaron from the hunter's trap. None of you will dare touch them or face my bloodline's fury." His voice thundered, revealing fangs that gleamed, and a collective shiver ran through the court. He placed Aaron on a central altar where a crystal fountain bubbled with ruby liquid, pure blood extracted from ancestral veins, infused with mountain herbs to cure poisons. The pup drank eagerly, small body strengthening, form stabilizing between boy and wolf. Theo, awakened by the commotion, peeked from behind Lyra's shoulder, fascinated and frightened. "Mama!" "They glow," he whispered, pointing at a wolf manipulating shadows like threads. Lyra approached the altar, ignoring the stares. "Will he be all right?" she asked, voice trembling, lightly touching Aaron's hand. The touch sent a spark through her, a fleeting vision of others' memories. Aaron playing in frozen caves, laughing before the trap, the scent of stolen freedom. Draven watched, his golden eyes softening for an instant. "Yes, thanks to you." He leaned close, too close, and Lyra felt the cold of his breath on her skin, mixed with a subtle heat that unsettled her. Her body, marked by life's harshness and motherhood's curves, suddenly yearned for something beyond survival, but fear anchored her. He was an immortal alpha, lord of blood bargains, while she was fragile, unworthy of such proximity. Before she could pull back, Selene hissed, voice a cutting blade. "Alpha, the Treaty of Eldor forbids humans in the depths. They bring unwanted light, weakness. And this bastard mother, hunters will hunt her and expose us with her." The court murmured in agreement, and Lyra felt the weight of rejection again, like Eudoria's gossips, but amplified by fangs and powers. Hot tears stung her eyes. She was always the outsider, the unworthy, carrying traumas of abuse that made her doubt her value. Thea whimpered, sensing her anguish, and Aaron, healed enough, stretched his small arms to her, a gesture of childish loyalty warming her heart. Draven snarled, advancing on Selena with flaming eyes. "The treaty was sealed with my blood and your ancestors. I honor it by protecting what saved my bloodline. Lyra and the boy stay, or you question my authority." The advisor pulled back, bowing, but venom in her gaze promised intrigue. The court dispersed reluctantly, leaving tense silence. Draven turned to Lyra, extending his hand. "Come. There are chambers for you, far from envious eyes, and a ritual to seal my protection. A voluntary blood pact that will bind our essences without stealing your mortality." She hesitated, his touch calling like a forbidden promise. The hall seemed a mirror of her soul, gothic, shadowy, full of dangerous beauties. Theo yawned and Aaron crawled to her feet, whimpering softly. With a sigh, Lyra accepted his hand, feeling cold merge with her warmth. "I trust you, for now," she murmured, heart racing with desire born in shadows. But as they followed corridors lit by mirrors, reflecting not just bodies, but souls, hers a flickering flame, his an abyss of loneliness, Lyra knew greater obstacles would come. Whispers of rebellion among wolf clans, echoes of hunters in mountains, and her own inner demons would test this fragile bond. In Valeria's depths, love would bloom in blood, but always with the price of transformation. And Lyra, for the first time, yearned to be reborn. The corridors of the Court of Eternal Shadows serpentined like pulsing veins through the mountain, obsidian walls reflecting weak light from floating torches in tones of red and black. Lyra followed Draven, her hand still clasped in his, a stark contrast between her palm's feverish heat and his skin's eternal ice. Theo, exhausted, had fallen asleep in her arms, his weight a comforting reminder amid the chaos of sensations invading her. Aaron, now invigorated by the fountain's blood, trotted beside the alpha, small form flickering between boy and pup, testing newly recovered strength. The air was dense, charged with constant whispers, ancestral voices echoing from fissures in rock, narrating curses and blood-sealed bargains from ages past. Draven stopped before an iron-forged door adorned with runes that ignited at his touch, revealing a spacious, shadowy room. It wasn't a prison, but a Gothic sanctuary. A canopy bed with black velvet curtains, tapestries depicting blood moons and immortal couples entwined in union rituals, and a hearth where blue flames danced without consuming wood. warming the frozen air. Tall mirrors lined the walls, their reflections distorted. It was capturing not just physical forms, but essences. Lyra's showed a woman bent by years of rejection, flickering flames in her green eyes. Draven's showed an abyss of darkness, with red veins, like coagulated blood in an ancient wound. "Rest here," Draven said, voice a deep murmur echoing in her chest like distant thunder. He placed Aaron in a cushioned alcove where the child curled like a cat, golden eyes half closed in contentment. "This chamber is guarded by my will. None from the court will enter without permission." His eyes fixed on hers, intense as if they could devour secrets. Lyra felt a shiver run down her spine, not just fear, but a spark of forbidden desire, something hard life in Euphoria had never allowed her to feel. Her body, marked by motherhood's curves and invisible scars of unwanted touches, Ada responded to his magnetism treacherously, heart accelerating against her will. She laid Theo on the bed, covering him with a fur blanket smelling of moss and eternity. "And the ritual you mentioned? The blood pact? What does it truly mean?" she asked, turning to him with trembling hands. Vulnerability consumed her. She remembered nights when Theo's father had attacked her, leaving her bleeding and alone, questioning whether she deserved love or protection. Here with Draven, fear of unworthiness mixed with dangerous hope. Draven approached, cloak brushing the floor like invisible wings. He raised his hand, tracing the air near her arm without touching, and a vision arose in Lyra's mind. A court in flames centuries ago. Him, a young alpha, sealing a treaty with humans, drinking from a cup of mixed blood to swear peace. "It's not transformation, Lyra. It's a bond, a drop of my blood in your vein, voluntary. It will create a shield. You'll feel my presence like a guardian, and I yours, without stealing your mortality, but linking us against shadows that hunt us." His lips curved in a dark smile, revealing the tip of a fang. "You carry traumas I recognize. Rejection, touches that hurt instead of heal. I swore to protect you, but this will make us true allies." The air between them crackled, charged with sensual tension. Lyra stepped back, threadbare shawl slipping slightly from her shoulder, exposing a faded purple mark, remnant of an old fight. Her eyes filled with unshed tears. She was the bastard mother, the worthless widow, and now before an immortal, she felt naked beyond flesh. "And if I refuse? Do I return to Euphoria? It's to hunters and stares that devour me?" Her voice broke, echoing her deep insecurities, the desire for belonging fighting against terror of surrender. Before Draven could answer, a hiss echoed from the corridor. The door burst open violently and Selena rushed in, flanked by 2 guard wolves, gray eyes flaming with fury. "Alpha, forgive the interruption," but whispers spread like poison. The peripheral clans learned of the human. They say she attracts mountain hunters, breaking the treaty. Rebellion boils. They demand judgment for her and the boy. Celine's gaze slid to Lyra with contempt, as if she were a plague. "Let me take her back to the surface. Your oath cannot risk us all." Draven growled, a primal sound making hearth flames agitate, casting dancing shadows on walls. He placed himself between Lyra and the intruder, his body tense as a bowstring. "You dare question my blood, Celine? My bloodline sealed bargains you barely comprehend. Lyra stays. Aaron chose her as Shadow Mother." His golden eyes blazed and an aura of power rose around him, making guards retreat. But Selene didn't bow. Instead, she extended a hand, revealing an ancient medallion, an artifact of bone and ruby, symbol of rival clans. The ancestors whisper against this. A pact with mortals awakens sleeping curses. Prove your loyalty, Alpha, or lose the court. Lyra felt panic squeeze her chest. Theo stirred in sleep with a moan. Aaron hissed from the corner. small form bristling in defense. She stepped forward, maternal courage surfacing despite trembling. I didn't ask for this, but I won't run. If the ritual binds me to him, I'll do it to protect my son. Her words came out firm, surprising even herself, a glimpse of growth amid chaos. Draven turned to her, face softening for an instant, rare vulnerability flashing in his eyes, the loneliness of centuries without a true bond. Then so be it. He cut his palm with a sharp claw, a drop of black blood gleaming like liquid onyx. He extended his hand and Lyra, heart hammering, accepted, pressing her lips against the wound. The blood slid down her throat like frozen fire, shared visions flooding her mind. Draven's memories of an alpha betrayed by mortal lovers, cursed to solitary immortality, and hers, nights of abuse, Theo's father laughing at her weakness. The bond formed, warmth pulsing in her veins, uniting pain and desire. Celine pulled back, medallion trembling in her hand, but her eyes promised retaliation. This will seal our end, she hissed before leaving the room in tense silence. Draven pulled Lyra to him, not in possession, but in protection. His cold, now a balm against her wounds. You are strong, Lyra. Stronger than any shadow here. His lips brushed her forehead, a touch sending waves of heat through her, awakening yearning for acceptance that would heal her scars. But as the pact settled, a tremor shook the walls, distant echoes of hunters in mountains, or worse, rebellion approaching. Lyra knew the price of love in shadows would be high, testing not just her courage, but Draven's essence. In Valeria's depths, transformation was beginning, but darkness always demanded its tribute in blood and tears. The pulse of Draven's blood in her veins was like a river of frozen fire, serpentining through every artery and awakening sensations Lyra had never imagined. Fragmented visions danced in her mind, not just his memories of a young alpha betrayed by a human who'd sworn eternal love only to poison him in a flaming court, but echoes of her own horrors. Theo's father's cruel laughter, fists falling like hammers on her flesh. A newborn baby's cry, witnessing his mother's weakness. Hot tears streamed down her face as she pulled away from Draven, his touch still burning on her lips. The Gothic room seemed to spin, mirrors on walls reflecting her transformed essence. No longer a flickering flame, but a steady blaze intertwined with red veins of shadow power. I see you now, Draven murmured, voice an echo in her soul, as if the bond united them beyond words. He didn't move to touch her again, respecting her body's trembling, but his golden eyes anchored her, full of ancient understanding. Your pain is like mine. Centuries of loneliness, sealed in curses blood doesn't erase. But together, these wounds strengthen us. Lyra wiped her face, heart hammering, not just with fear, but with forbidden intimacy that terrified and attracted her. Her body, once a burden of curves marked by hard life and motherhood, now pulsed with new vitality, as if the pact infused her with a glimpse of eternity without stealing her humanity. Theo stirred in bed, waking with a confused moan, green eyes wide, seeing the alpha so close. Mama, it hurts here, the boy said, touching his chest, perhaps feeling the ritual's echoes through her. Aaron crawled from the alcove, small form shifting between boy and pup as he nestled at Lyra's feet, whimpering in solidarity. She knelt, embracing both, their warmth contrasting with the room's persistent cold. It's all right, my loves. We're protected now. But the words sounded hollow. The tremor in walls had ceased, but a low hum persisted, like distant roar of a storm approaching in Valeria's depths. Draven turned to the door, fangs bared in a low snarl. Celine won't rest. Her rival clan, the Silver Shadows, always coveted my throne. They use the treaty as pretext to weaken us. He extended his hand to Lyra again, this time with urgency. Come, we must confront them before rebellion swallows the court. She hesitated, but the bond pulsed in her blood, guiding her like amplified maternal instinct. Picking up Theo and letting Aaron balance on her shoulder, she followed the Alpha through labyrinthine corridors. Floating torches trembled, casting shadows that seemed alive, whispering fragments of prophecies. Mortal blood awakens ancient evil. The Alpha will fall if the bond breaks. The court's main hall was in turmoil when they arrived. Wolves of varied bloodlines crowded around the Thorn Throne, a structure of fossilized bones and rubies pulsing with Draven's essence. Selene occupied the center, medallion in hand now glowing with malignant silver light, flanked by a dozen allies, slender figures with silver-streaked fur and eyes cold as frost. "Shadow Brothers," she proclaimed, voice cutting like blades. "The Alpha risks us for a bastard human and her weak pup. Eudoria's hunters already scale the mountains, drawn by the scent of mixed blood. The Treaty of Eldor will break, and Valeria will fall in eternal flames." A roar of approval echoed, fangs gleaming in crystal light, and hostile stares turned to Lyra, who shrank instinctively, rejection traumas resurfacing like poison. Draven advanced, air around him condensing into black mist, a manifestation of his ancestral power. "You forget who sealed the treaty with his own blood," he thundered, revealing runes on his cloak, igniting like living veins. "Lyra saved Aaron, heir of our bloodline. Her bond with me is a shield, not weakness. Whoever opposes will face judgment of eternal blood." He raised his hand and the pact with Lyra responded. A wave of red energy spread from his chest to hers, making her gasp as shared visions flooded loyal wolves' minds. Flashes of Aaron's rescue. Is a human mother defying death through compassion? Selene laughed, an icy sound echoing like breaking glass. "Illusions of a bewitched Alpha. See what your weakness brings." With a gesture, she invoked the medallion, and silver shadows rose from the floor, serpentining like living snakes toward Theo and Aaron. Lyra screamed, clutching her sons, but the bond pulsed again. This time, through her, a spark of awakened power, born from Draven's blood, flowed from her veins. She extended her hand, and shadows retreated, burning as if touching mortal fire. Court wolves gasped, some bowing in reverence, others retreating in dread. "She carries the Alpha's gift," an elder murmured, eyes wide. Draven moved like a blur, driving fangs into Selene's shoulder, in drinking just enough to weaken her and seal a vision of betrayal in her mind, memories of past conspiracies linking her to human hunters. The advisor fell to her knees, medallion shattering into silver dust, her allies scattering in panic. "You are banished from shadows, Selene. Your clan will answer for this." The Alpha rose, black blood dripping from his lips, and turned to Lyra with a look of deep admiration. "You saved us. The bond awakens dormant forces in you." Lyra trembled, power still tingling on her skin, but the cost came in waves. Exhaustion making her stagger, visions of her own pain mixing with Draven's, healing old wounds with acceptance leaving her vulnerable. Theo whimpered and Aaron licked her hand, a gesture of childish gratitude. The court, now divided but leaning toward loyalty, murmured promises of alliance. But as Draven guided her back to chambers, a distant roar echoed from mountains. Hunters approaching, drawn by chaos. "They come for us," he whispered, pulling her into a protective embrace, his cold now a comfort against terror. His lips brushed her ear, awakening sensual desire promising healing beyond survival. "But together we'll face them. Your mortal heart is the light illuminating my shadows." In Valeria's depths, love forged in blood tested its limits, healing traumas and awakening powers. but external darkness beat at the door, demanding a final sacrifice for the eternity being born between them. The distant roar from mountains grew like a chorus of lost souls, seeping through obsidian's fissures and making floating torches flicker in panic. Lyra felt trembling in her bones, amplified by the blood bond pulsing like a second heart in her chest. The Gothic room, once refuge, now seemed a living tomb, tapestries of blood moons undulating as if fabric breathed imminent chaos. Theo clung to her, tiny fingers digging into threadbare shawl. Aaron hissed softly, small form bristling in instinctive alert. Draven rose beside her, a wall of shadows and power, golden eyes flaming with ancestral fury, making him even more imposing. Broad shoulders tense under rune-embroidered cloak, fangs bared like blades forged in night. "They come in number," he murmured, voice contained thunder echoing in her mind through the pact. Eudora hunters allied with Selene's traitors. The treaty ruptured. Their blood smells of hatred and poisoned silver. Lyra swallowed hard, metallic taste of ritual still on her tongue, or mixing with dread squeezing her stomach. She remembered nights cowering in the cabin, hearing Theo's father's fists pounding the door, promising pain she couldn't escape. Now danger was greater, not just for her fragile life, but for the improvised family she'd formed in shadows. "I'm not a warrior," she whispered, voice hoarse with exhaustion and doubt, eyes lowered fixed on distorted reflection in mirror. A woman marked by faded purple scars, generous curves life had hardened, but now carrying a subtle glow, echo of awakened power. Draven touched her chin with cold fingers, raising her face to meet his. The gesture was gentle, contrasting with savagery in his sculpted features. Square jaw, full lips, hiding lethal fangs. Scar on temple gleaming like reminder of eternal battles. "You are more than that, Lyra. The bond awakens what was always in you, a mother's strength defying death. Feel me in your blood. I am your armor." His eyes softened, a glimpse of vulnerability breaking through immortal facade. Centuries of loneliness, lovers who'd betrayed him through fear of his darkness, now healed by her flame. Air between them crackled with sensual tension, heat rising through her skin despite his cold, awakening deep yearning for acceptance, for touches healing instead of hurting. Before she could respond, floor shook violently and screams echoed from corridors. "Hunters broke through the runes, silver and fire in the depths," Draven snarled, picking up Aaron with one hand while extending the other to Lyra and Theo. "To the throne hall. There we'll invoke ancestral blood." They ran, Lyra's feet echoing on cold stones, his boy whimpering on her shoulder. The court was in chaos. Loyal wolves raising shadow barriers, but Selene's traitors, now allied with humans, opened portals in walls, allowing hunters armed with silver crossbows and flaming torches to invade the sanctuary. Air smelled of ozone and burned flesh, hum of broken magic mixing with snarls and screams. In the main hall, the thorn throne pulsed like a wounded heart, red crystals cracking under pressure. Selene emerged from shadows, no longer advisor, but declared traitor. Body marked by Draven's bites, but gray eyes gleaming with vengeful hatred. "See, Alpha, your human condemns us," she hissed, directing a group of hunters straight at Lyra. A burly man, the same Eudora hunter who'd set the trap, raised a silver spear, face twisted in fury. "Dirty widow, you brought evil to us. You'll pay for the monster you hid!" The spear flew, but the bond reacted. Lyra instinctively raised her free hand, and a barrier of ethereal blood, red veins woven from air, deflected the blow, burning the weapon like acid. The hunter screamed, and Aaron snarled in fury, small form bristling as Draven set him down. The Alpha launched against invaders, moving like a living storm, fangs sinking into throats, claws tearing armor, shadows rising like tentacles to swallow hunters. Human and wolf blood mixed on floor's mosaic, sealing ancient curses making the hall tremble. Lyra, protecting children behind the throne, felt power flow stronger. Draven's visions flooding her mind, not just pain, but stolen moments of tenderness in forgotten courts, a desire for connection mirroring hers. "Fight with me," he whispered in her soul. Yeah, when she obeyed. Extending hands, she invoked blood threads binding Selene, forcing the traitor to kneel. "You? How?" Selene gasped, eyes wide as Lyra's bond burned her, revealing her own betrayals. Secret bargains with humans for power, fear of losing control to a mortal. "I was unworthy, as you call me," Lyra countered, voice firm for the first time, tears streaming but chin raised. "But his blood showed me. I'm worthy of protecting what I love." With a gesture, she tightened threads, and Selene screamed, body dissolving into silver dust, an ancestral curse consuming her traitorous essence. Remaining hunters retreated, leader falling to knees, seeing Draven advance, covered in black blood. "The treaty," the Alpha murmured, raising his hand in forced mercy. "It's reborn in her blood. Go, tell Euphoria. Shadows protect their own, and balance returns." Humans fled through fissures, trembling ceasing as runes reformed, sealed by renewed pact. Hall fell silent, loyal wolves bowing to Alpha and human who'd saved the court. Draven approached Lyra, exhausted but victorious, wiping blood from his face with cloak. "You faced darkness and won. Your strength heals my curses." He pulled her to him, cold lips meeting hers in urgent kiss full of repressed desire. Fire melting eternal ice, promising nights of gentle touches erasing traumas. Lyra responded, body molding to his, feeling for first time unworthiness dissolve into acceptance, her mortality's warmth heating his immortality. Theo and Aaron approached, laughing softly, small hands intertwining. Unlikely brothers in Shadow World. Court whispered promises of alliance, throne pulsing in harmony. In Valeria's depths, forbidden love had bloomed in blood and courage, transforming monsters into guardians, rejected into queens. But as mist dissipated in mountains, Lyra knew eternity wasn't a prison, but a bond. No man, neither human nor wolf, would touch them again. And in his arms she found the belonging she'd always craved.